Ladies and gentlemen, the ANC are asking a question, and that question is, why are there not enough white people in the ANC helping the ANC shape its non-racialism? The ANC claims to be a non-racial party, which effectively means that they're meant to be colorblind. The problem is that the ANC doesn't really put any policies in place that would encourage any of the other demographics to want to be members of the ANC.
Well, Byron, the problem is, I think, that you think like sort of different races want different things from government. Is that what you're actually saying? Because you said the ANC doesn't have any policies for whiteys, basically, in a nutshell.
Yes, it's almost like South Africa's requirements as individuals are very different. It's almost like not all of us are the same. Who knew?
Oof. Off to the Human Rights Commission with you. But the reason why we're talking about this, ladies and gentlemen, is over the course of the weekend, City Press reported that the ANC is considering a document in order to garner more votes from minorities, white, Indians, and coloureds. And according to them, if they are able to get like 20% of the minority vote, they will get an overwhelming majority come 2024. And you can almost see in a way that this is what they are trying to do. Because Byron, let me put it to you, my friend. We spoke to Frans Cronje on this podcast 3 weeks ago now, and I recommend everyone watches it. But he made a good point. The ANC went through a deeply left-wing populist phase under Cyril Ramaphosa with the NHI, with EWC, with the variety of other things, nationalization of the Reserve Bank. And in return for all that populism, they are basically polling it around between 38 and 42%. Not great. But for the past, say, year, the ANC has been relatively, if I may say, moderate and pragmatic. I don't feel any ideological bent from them. Maybe this is why the pragmatism they hope will secure minority votes come next year. So here's the thing, Byron, the dirty little secret of the ANC, it's known as the balance of forces, right? So we know that they want a few things: full socialism, full national democratic revolution, expropriation of land, all that stuff. They really, really do want that. So the balance of forces dictate that the ANC sort of step back from the ideology and become a lot more pragmatic, and then they bring it back later on when their popularity is at a higher level. They did this with the mining charter, they did this with BEE, they've done this with a variety of things, Canada deployment in the past. So it's got a well-known tactic of the ANC. The elections are coming up next year. They need as many votes as possible. They are sort of trying to end load shedding, though I know that you have an insight into that. And all the ideological stuff is off the table, at least in terms of policies and rules and parliament. Even the expropriation bill has been approved by parliament, but the president hasn't signed it yet. So all in all, the point of this video is don't trust the ANC when they become pragmatic. They're just trying to win an election.
With the ESCOM scenario, the biggest Achilles heel that the ANC has is the electricity crisis. They didn't want the Rater to be successful, because if the Rater was successful, what the ANC couldn't do is they couldn't claim that they fixed load shedding. Well, lo and behold, now the ANC have their guy there. All of a sudden, all these barriers that De Ruyter faced are suddenly finding themselves being lifted. They could have done this under De Ruyter, but they chose not to. And they want to actually have some kind of electoral victory. They want to say, we have something, we've done something. And the reality of why they want to do that is because during their last election cycle, there were a number of pledges they made, and none of them have been fulfilled. So the reality is the ANC needs some kind of win. So I found the rhetoric that the ANC is tending to adopt now to minorities very reminiscent of what happened with SWAPO in Namibia. So in Namibia, when they were running those elections, you may recall that SWAPO turned around and said the whites should be very thankful because we've allowed them to live here in peace and harmony, and so they should vote for us. Like, they should vote for us because we looked after them. And the funny thing is that I think the ANC are now going to take a very SWAPO type line and try encourage the whiteys to vote for the ANC. And if the ANC actually had some policies that were beneficial to me and mine, then I would probably vote for them. But with that being said, Ramon, I do have a point, and a point of contention that I think that we can raise with the white population in general. The white population leaves this country at an astronomical rate, shows no real nationalism towards their nation state, and doesn't ever think that they can build a community like an Afrikaner community, independent of the government, that looks after their own interests. They're far quicker to leave and abandon ship than they are to try to fix the holes and rebuild the ship. With that being said, I would say to all white individuals in this state, if they actually wanted themselves to be a force, a political force and a force in the country that the ANC felt that they needed to appeal on a political point of view for policies that would be important to them. There is a winning strategy for this, and there is a way to do it. And that, my dear friends, would be every single household, every single white household needs to have at least between 6 and 10 children. The number of the whiteys in the country, the younger generation, needs to dramatically dramatically increase. By increasing the voter base and the population count, you now have a demographic the ANC cannot ignore. Every time a whitey leaves the country, the demographics of that population decreases, which means that the clout and the political weight that that population carries diminishes. So to a large degree, the immigration story is part and parcel of the reason why the ANC went full populist and abandon any form of political policies that appeal to any minorities.
So there's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't think, we spoke about this on the podcast, and by the way, if you want to listen to it, it's linked down below last week. The problem with your idea of like demographics equals destiny, I do agree to a large margin, but also we need to bring in the factor of the intolerant minority. So this is an idea by Nassim Taleb in his book called Skin in the Game, and he talks about how societies are run by intolerant minorities. So you need about 2 to 5% of the population really wanting one thing, and the rest of the population not caring about that one thing, which is why all our food is halal, by the way. Muslims really care about halal food, the rest of us don't care at all. The problem we face in South Africa is that the minorities are not staking claim to their rightful place in this country. You talk about whites, I'm talking about minorities in general. The Indians have played a significant part in South Africa. So have the coloureds, so have the whites. No one is taking that claim. There is no real nationalism emanating from those minority groups. I don't think if we have 10 million whites, things will change for the better or worse. But if the remaining minorities in South Africa actually stake their claim to the country, the ANC would not just toy with the idea of getting minority votes. They would think this is a very important demographic to capture because they have so much power and because they are the intolerant minority.
Yeah, I disagree. The white population in South Africa is on a significant decline because the number of white individuals that are still here are of a very aged characteristic. In other words, all of the younger generations have left the country, but the older generation has stayed. So the numbers are decreasing both through immigration and through natural decay or natural wastage of the population. That means that the demographic becomes less and less important as time goes by. And the only way to reverse the importance of the voice is to reverse the decline of the population statistics, which is why I come back to the same thing. If the white population want to forge a destiny in South Africa and want their voice to be significant enough to hear, then it needs to have population reversal, which means every household, 6 to 8 children, large families, mother stays at home, looks after the babies, raise your babies in the right way, get them to be politically inactive in their environment, shape the future that they want. Once the demographics, the slide has reversed, I promise you, and I think you'll agree with me, Ramon, the ANC will change tact for that population because they now feel that the population is one that they wish to court. And once they court you, because you may find that some of the populistic, radicalist policies tend to disappear.
So, I mean, I would agree with you. In theory, I sort of agree with you, but in practice, this is like a 20, 30-year project. By then, who knows what South Africa will be. But the solution, of course, to all of that is just become a majority in the area that you want to be a majority in, i.e. the enclave system. That's also another solution to all this. But anyway, to the topic at hand. Number one, don't be bamboozled by the ANC's balance of forces. They're becoming far more pragmatic and ending load shedding because it's an election next year. And number two, if you are a minority, please don't vote for the ANC. Like, don't be bamboozled for the 30th year in a row. I mean, if you do vote for the ANC, don't follow Byron's breeding program, please.